Hello and welcome to this online music profile. My name is Jane Cornwell and I am the jazz critic for the London Evening Standard and a writer for Jazzwise music magazine. This webcast is with Waclaw Zimpel, a Poznan-born, Warsaw-based instrumentalist, composer and sound artist and a major player on the current Polish jazz scene. Waclaw is inspired as much by jazz as he is electronics, minimalism and roots music from around the world, blurring boundaries and creating a new musical language in the process. He plays alto clarinet and woodwind instruments including the khaen, a free reed mouth organ from Laos in Southeast Asia. Wacław's 2016 album Lines won him Poland's prestigious Passport Polityki Award. His 2020 album Massive Oscillations got 5-star reviews and drew comparisons to such legends as Terry Riley, Ornette Coleman and John Coltrane. Let's have a little look at Waclaw in action here. Waclaw Zimpel.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Very happy to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about your background and your earliest musical memories.
My first musical memory is my father playing piano. He used to play classical music at home, mostly Chopin, Bach, Beethoven. Then I started playing violin.
You swapped to clarinet at some point. Why was that?
I was playing violin for 9 years, but I wasn't very much into it. When my father bought me a mouth harmonica, I basically fell in love completely with all forms of blues, which I started listening to at that time. Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, Son House, Howlin' Wolf, and many others. I was also really into the boogie-woogie playing. I was playing piano as well in this style. When I was really young, like 15, I was playing in some bars in Poznan. I knew that definitely I want to be a musician, but violin was not something which I wanted to continue. And I was listening to old jazz recordings, like very old recordings of Louis Armstrong, and I really loved the sound of the clarinet. That's why I chose the clarinet.
You've sort of said that jazz was your salvation. I mean, did it take you away from that really rigid, I imagine, classical education?
When I picked up clarinet, I knew that I want to be an improviser. So when I finished classical university, I dedicated myself 100% to free improvisation.
At what point did you start writing and composing and really feel like you had something to say?
Very early, when I started dealing with improvisation, I was trying to compose some simple things. I felt that there is some creative force around which I can get connected to. Somehow I felt that all those exercises, practicing classical music, gives me the tools to really be able to catch this, creative force.
What about electronics and loops? Because that's something that you're really well known for now.
I've really started thinking about electronics as my tool. When I recorded my first solo album Lines, it was studio work. There was a lot of different tracks for each composition. I started thinking how to play this music on stage, how to play it live. First idea was to buy a looper to multiply myself on stage. So it was my first electronic tool. Once you get into this world, you want more and more. It's like super addictive. I started buying more and more stuff, like some synthesizers, beat machines. Eventually, I started using computer as one of my tools, but still using clarinet as my main source of sound. It was the start, and right now there's plenty of devices which I'm using.
Let's have a look at your at the title track of Lines, which is your first fully solo album. And this is you on various instruments with various effects going on. kind of access the musical world you'd been visiting with all your different projects and bands. Could you talk briefly about what those worlds were, though, that you brought together in lines, and how looping kind of helped?
It was kind of special moment for me. First time in my life when I was creating music completely alone, creating from A to Z something myself. It turned out that it is something completely different to what I did before. I wasn't thinking too much about tools. I was just, going with the flow. A lot of my old inspirations took voice here, like especially Terry Riley. I kind of borrowed some of his tools to create myself again. Also other minimalists like Lamont Young, Paulina Oliveira, Steve Reich. This stuff came to me as sort of a bridge out from free jazz world to something new.
Some of those composers don't like being called minimalists, but there was a kind of spaciousness to lines that was part of its beauty. And I think this use of space is something that you do incredibly well.
Considering the amount of tracks which I was using, recording lines, is probably not that much minimalist, but probably this sense of space, as you said, this is what inspired me a lot in music of Terry Riley. His music takes you to completely different dimension.
You've worked with everybody from legendary American jazz pianist Bobby Few to a hugely successful ongoing partnership with the young Polish musical explorer Kuba Ziolek, and you had a live collaboration with the Moroccan Gnawa musician Mokhtar Guinea. Then there's your Sagara project, in which you brought together the disciplines of Western jazz and Indian raga music across 2 albums in 2015 and 2017. You're clearly interested in music from elsewhere, in folk music. How does that intersect with the electronics that's so much an important part of your work? And I also think it could be something to do with this notion of trance that seems to be very central to everything you do.
I think that folk music from all over the world deals with the sense of body, eventually influencing the mind as well. Electronic dance music is also very much connected with the body. People are going into the trance state dancing to techno music, and they are going to the trance dancing to Gnawa music during Gnawa rituals. And I think that is very much connected.
A lot to do with this idea of repetition and building up, which is something you do so well, particularly on Massive Oscillations.
Repetition is kind of a very good tool to hypnotize yourself and listeners. That's why I'm using repetitions. It's as simple as that. I want to, put myself into the trance state, and I want exactly the same to the listeners. But it doesn't have to be a repetition. It might be also a very long tone. That's what I did in my album Ebbing in the Tide, using extremely long tones of the clarinet.
That brings us neatly to your ongoing collaboration with the UK electronic music visionary James Holden. You've released an EP together called Long Weekend. He mixed your 2020 album Massive Oscillations, and with Ebbing in the Tide he used a kind of advanced processing technique that he developed especially for you.
I asked James, is it possible to put different effects on different pitches of the scale? For example, if I play C major scale, is it possible to send just note C to the effect? So literally after half an hour, he sent me the patch, which allows me to create very polyphonic, rich structures using just one melodic instrument, which is clarinet in my case.
So let's have a listen to Sine Tapes, because there's polyphony in there, and it's the title borrowed from the basic waveform of sound recording, and it's the opening track on Massive Oscillations. previously said that anything which is a sound wave in time can be called music, and that as musicians, you're working with the physics of sound wave.
If we consciously listen to the sound source, we can call it a music. We basically deal with vibration. This vibration goes to our bodies, and it goes to bodies of the listeners. What composers, producers, improvisers, musicians in general are doing, they are giving a shape to it.
Most recently, you've been collaborating with a poet, performer, and singer called Alex Freiheit, who you say is one of your favorite Polish artists right now. Let's just take a look at both of you performing in a piece called Pogrom.
Mimo że wykonuję różne ćwiczenia, ciągle się garbię i jestem zwinięta w kłębek, nawet gdy idę ulicą i mam głośno muzykę w uszach, coś co kiedyś działało i dodawało mi brawury na ulicach. Nie wiem, kto mi mówił, że teraz już tak nie można.
Tell me a little about this collaboration with Alex.
Alex Freiheit and her duo called Shiksa. This is her and her partner Buri. They really have extremely important message. Listening to Shiksa, experiencing their live performances makes me more conscious human being, and definitely more conscious and better feminist.
I know you've also been working with prepared piano, which seems like another left turn for you. How did that project come about?
As the piano is an instrument which, this instrument is very important to me, and sound of this instrument is very important to me. I created with a friend of mine sort of a robot, which is basically 6 different electromagnetic hammers. Those hammers are striking the keys, and I'm controlling it with kind of cool analog device. And basically I can create a lot of polyphonies and polyrhythms, just playing a little bit with my hands. It's like sort of, transhuman thing. I'm using a robot, and together with my hands, it's a really cool experience. This controller of those hammers is very unpredictable. Very small change of the tempo of one hammer changes completely the groove of the whole machine. So it always goes to different spaces.
What is next for Waclaw Zimpel? I know you've got an album coming out. What can we expect to see in the next few months?
Definitely this new collaboration with Shackleton, musician from UK, based in Berlin right now. Our second album will be probably more ambitious project in terms of musical forms. Here I want to dive very deep into the clarinet again. I want to come back to this very organic connection with my clarinet. So probably it will be sort of a theme of the next couple of months.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
I think
very
we're
much.
going to go out with you playing the piano and the hammers. I think
Fantastic.
that's going to be great. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.